Welcome. In this video, we'll be taking a look at how to multiply monomials together. So to begin, I want you to try this problem and do it as quickly as you can. Ready, set, go. Okay, so did you multiply 2 times 16 first and then multiply your answer by 5? Or did you take a different strategy? Well, one way to do this very quickly is if you switch around the 5 and the 16, let's see what you come up with. So you'd end up with 2 times 5 times 16. Well, 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times 16 is 160. So notice that once I could make 10, then multiplying anything by 10 is something that I can readily do. So do you remember why we were allowed to switch the numbers around and end up with the same answer? Well, that's one of the properties for multiplication. It's one of the tools we can use. It's called the commutative property, and we're going to rely on it heavily in this problem. The second piece that I want to make you aware of is something we talked about in a previous video, which is one of the rules for exponents. So this is what I call rule number 1, which is if you multiply like bases, x squared times x to the third, to know how many factors of x we end up with, well, we're going to add the exponents together. So 2 plus 3 gives me 5 factors of x. In other words, x to the 5th power. So let's take a look at number 1 and see if we can use these two ideas to help us solve it. So number 1 is multiplying a whole bunch of stuff together. So the first thing I'm going to do is to switch around the order of my terms. So what I'm going to do is kind of what I call group like objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all my numbers first. Remember, this 2 isn't really attached to the y, it's being multiplied by y. Well, I can switch around any multiplication. So I'm going to put all my numbers first, then I'm going to do my variables last. So I've got 2 times 2 times 3. I'm just picking off all my numbers. Then what I'm going to do is I could put the y's or the z's. It really doesn't matter, but as long as since I see the y's first, I'll do the y's. So I've got y times y to the 6th. And then I've got z squared times z to the 8th. And then step 2 is to use rules for exponents. So the first thing is I'm going to multiply these numbers together. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12. And then I've got y, well, 1 plus 6 is 7. That's why if there's no exponent, we assume there's a 1 there. And then I've got z to the 2 times z to the 8th, which is z to the 10th if I add those exponents together. And so my answer is 12y to the 7th, z to the 10th. Okay, I want you to try number 2. Pause the video and then restart it after you've given it a try. So for number 2, same steps. So the first step is to group like objects. So I'm going to put my numbers first. So 2 times 4 times 3. Then I'm going to do my x's. And then I'm going to do my t's. It's good habit when you're working with exponents to never leave a variable what I call naked, in other words, without an exponent. So I always just slip a 1 in there until I'm all done. So 2 times 4 is 8, times 3 is 24. And then we've got x to the 1 plus 6 is 7, and t to the 14. And that should do it.